warrior princess.
It's late September, 1995.
You are not ready.
The PlayStation is out in North America, launching with Rayman, a new 2D franchise standing atop a floating platform in a sea of 3D hype.
3, 2.
It's one of the first games to come from the upcoming team Ubisoft, but the roots of its origins run deeper than the mid-90s.
Donc t'as une phase, traversée du désert.
Michael Ansel started drawing Rayman as a teenager. Later on, he started writing the program on the Atari ST. Ansel told RetroGamer.net, "At the time, I was simply trying to teach myself to draw, make music, and write code in order to realize my dream of making video games." Ubisoft would help publish some of his smaller projects, like Pick and Pile. Then when his friend Frederick Hode jumped on board, Rayman was in development for the Super Nintendo CD, and stopped when the hardware got canceled. An unfinished Super Nintendo prototype hit the net in 2017. It's playable.
Jaguar.
They felt the Atari Jaguar was the next system that could handle their vision. Ansel said, "As a child, I spent lots of time close to the rivers, chasing strange insects, climbing on big trees. When you're a child, everything seems huge and extraordinary. When I started working on a Rayman game, it all started with trees and strange creatures." Its distinguished 2D look and loud, colorful graphics wowed players in a time when 3D seemed like the only way up. Lush, colorful forests with the sound of wildlife and running water put you into this cartoony land full of mischief, exploration, and controller-snapping difficulty. Rayman delivered in a way the 16-bit era could not. It ported to PlayStation as a launch title, and 2 or 3 weeks later, the Saturn. Since Sega's next console was originally set to launch in September, one might assume Rayman was supposed to be a Saturn release game as well. One way or another, the detached limbs floated right into the benchmark of engineering excellence. Little did they know, this 3D era console is a beast for 2D. Rayman's land has nature and people living together in harmonious peace. Their existence revolves around the Great Protoon, protected by Electoons.
One fateful day, the evil Mr. Dark steals the Great Protoon and defeats Spatilla the Fairy as she tries to protect it!
The world is now unbalanced. Weird phenomena and strange villains now romp its ground. Batilla needs time to recharge, so it's up to Rayman to save the world he guards.
No problem.
Side note, nobody has arms or legs. So far, the closest thing we have for true Saturn 2D platforming is Astal, an outstanding but short game directly from Sega. Rayman competes with Astal's sheer beauty and production value, but instead of an arcade format, its levels are split into subworlds, each with stages that can be re-entered. The player can now save progress, earn new power-ups, and use those power-ups to rescue more buddies in old stages. Right away, you're hit with sensational music. Rayman's soundtrack is excellent. The first world is a lush forest with rivers and plant life that you can interact with. It gradually teaches you how to take advantage of his punch ability, while occasionally giving you new moves. You're lulled into a false sense of security. This game is easy to learn at first, but its intense difficulty will demand respect and practice the further Rayman dives. His punch can be charged for more range. The fist comes back like a boomerang. You can use it to beat down these plums, knock them into the water to cross gaps, or use their momentum to carry Rayman across obstacles. Sometimes, Rayman needs to punch out boulders or move these spinning spike balls. Your goal is to rescue the little buddies. There's 6 cages per stage. These Electoons act as a vehicle to encourage exploration and backtracking. The character's personality shines, even though Rayman has little dialogue. Take the first mosquito fight, for example. The angry bug challenges Rayman. He beats him up. So much the mosquito starts crying. So what does Rayman do? He pats him on the back and becomes his friend. They team up and help take on Mr. Dark's forces together in a shmup level. Rayman is a total bro. What does Rayman do when he beats up the second, more challenging mosquito? He shoves his victory in his face. Hey man, can't be everybody's friend. On top of permanent power-ups, each level has temporary items. They can make your fist more powerful, extend your health, or give 1-ups. You frequently collect these blue tings. 100 gives you an extra life. All of these items go away when you lose a life. Many levels have their own shtick. Like here, when Ray Tarzan finally finds some clothes, he gives you a seed to plant flower platforms. It's used to escape from the rising water. Later in Bandland, you slide down these silver bars like an ice level. This is one of many subtle differences between the ports of Rayman. In the original Jaguar version, he moves along these bars as if they're an ordinary surface. This substantially changes how the level is played. On the Saturn level, Bandland is more about momentum conservation, timing, and speed. Rayman on the Jaguar seems to act as the base game from which Ubisoft used to port it to other machines. With each version, they refined it. Things were added, taken away, or changed. On the Saturn, the intro was given voice acting. MIDI tracks are done away with. More backgrounds have parallax scrolling. In the rising water level, rain overlays are added to the PS1 and Saturn. Lightning effects were then added to the 1996 PC port. There are several small environmental changes throughout all versions. Most of them seem to be for artistic reasons, not because of hardware limitations. Check out NX Gamer's video for a more precise explanation on Rayman's port differences. Some changes seem to be exclusive to the Saturn. In Pink Plant Woods, the fog effects added to the PS1 version are now gone. This could be due to the Saturn's difficulty with handling transparent graphics, even though Astal managed to pull those off. The fog is still gone in the later PC version. The iconic Yeah track is now a produced audio clip and has more sounds. When you defeat Mr. Dark, the windows shatter. With all of these small differences, it's tough for me to tell you which version is the best. They gradually added things and made subtle changes with each version, sort of like remodeling a house. Like any well-designed game, new obstacles and tools make themselves known the deeper the player goes. With each new simple obstacle, later levels take them to a new extreme, like these 4 spinning platforms. At first, it's a basic way to cross a gap, but later on, you have to ride one across hills and walls of spike balls for the entire level. These moving clouds at the beginning eventually become the only safe surface in some places. Ubisoft gets incredibly creative by making new types of challenges for each level you play. Everything gradually builds up, it never gets stale, and it's never a walk through the park. Things are not going to get any easier for you, Rayman. You're right about that, Sugar. You're right about that. Rayman is hard. Its difficulty slowly goes up, like a hot tub rising in temperature. Don't let it boil you. Take things with ease, and remember, Rayman rewards precision, patience, and practice. As a fan of platformers, I never felt the difficulty got in the way of enjoying the game. It's reasonable. But don't ever feel like you must clear every stage without ever needing to start over. You will need to start over sometimes. You're given 5 continues. You cannot get more continues, so if you waste them, you can trap yourself in a save file with only a couple lives left, leaving you practically no shot at continuing on in the hard levels unless you grind for more lives in easy stages. When I beat the boss in Blue Mountain, I perished all my continues to learn its attack pattern. So instead of saving, I felt the need to hit reset, start over from my old save file, and try beating it without dying. I was able to do it. Again, it rewards practice, but you would be reasonable to see this as a game design flaw. Fortunately, dying seems to never be the game's fault. Its programming is pretty watertight. The only glitch I encountered was clipping through this solid platform and getting a cage I should not have been able to reach from here. Not gonna complain about that. There are 5 worlds. Each world is between 3 and 4 stages, while each stage typically has about 3 to 5 levels. You can't take on Mr. Dark without first rescuing every Electoon. HowLongToBeat.com estimates 15 hours of playtime for the average completionist, so it's a decent-sized game.
Rayman, were you surprised to be named Best Video Game of the Year? No.
Rayman got a lot of good press before and after it came out. He had a presence at 1995's E3. Even put some dude in a Rayman mascot suit. Hey, that guy has arms. It has lots of magazine ads, pre-release articles, and even TV commercials. The Jag may have gotten it first, but the numerous future ports were well publicized. GamePro seemed to think it would get a 32X release, but this of course did not happen. When Rayman launched with PlayStation, the reviewers adored it, even with it not being 3D. It sold really well. Archived reports show that it pushed about 900,000 copies in its first 2 years and became the best-selling PlayStation game of all time for the United Kingdom. But when the Saturn version came out a few weeks later, it didn't get nearly as much attention. It's tough to say how well or poorly the Saturn version sold. Either way, Ubisoft clearly had faith in Sega. The company originally planned their 2D sequel for both the PS1 and Saturn. That game was canceled altogether. But the 3D Great Escape did come out for the Sega Dreamcast. The few reviews Saturn's Rayman got were good. Video Games Magazine gave it a 7, criticizing it for not being an original concept, even though it was exceptional. Entertainment Weekly gave it an A+. GameFan says its vast 32-bit power applied to genius platforming, calling it the relief Saturn owners have been waiting for. They said it's the first superb platformer with any real depth they've ever played. Since GameFan's review indicates this came out sometime in September, this makes me wonder if Rayman for the Saturn was supposed to be a launch title, much like its PlayStation counterpart. But the Saturn version itself is poorly documented, like much of the console's other games. Since the Saturn's original US launch was supposed to be a week before PlayStation's, I can't help but wonder if having Rayman would have made our floaty arm dude a Sega success story instead of Sony's. It's hard to say, and all we can do at this point is speculate. Remember, the Jaguar version came first, and Rayman did not bring that thing out of the grave. After the long software drought from May to August, Chairman Segata has been busy getting his arms and legs around the Saturn surge of autumn games, but most of them didn't quite cut it. Now subtract the arms and legs, and you finally gifted our god a beautiful game, worthy of his wall. Rayman may be difficult, but finding a reason to call it bad is even more difficult. It made players realize the next gen does not have to be about who has the best or most realistic 3D graphics. Ansel himself was shocked at how successful his long-term passion project turned out to be, during a time when polygons seemed to be the only way into the future. It was a time of the first 3D games like Toshinden and Ridge Racer, and Rayman was still 2D. Maybe the rule is that players don't really care about technical details. They just follow the fun, and that's all. Since the Saturn doesn't appear to be the greatest at 3D, maybe this is a good sign for its future. Perhaps Sega can use the superb 2D to their advantage and find success in the North American market once again. Only time will tell. Ubisoft and Rayman both live on, making this 90s company among the few to survive well into the next millennium.
What? Now that's legendary.
The company is now so big, it gets its own press conference at E3.
Oh, we are late! Oh, for the love of God! Yeah.
We are here.
I think we made it.
Yeah, you made it, yes.